Right then guys, so round 2 with the STX liner in the Leshiy 2. This is going to be quite a short video as we covered most of what we wanted to cover in part 1, and over the last week or so I've just made a couple of little changes to the brass thing on the end here that's made a little bit of a difference with the barrel. So first off, I just want to address a comment that a couple of you had in the last video, and that is, why would we want to use an STX liner in a Leshiy 2? And there's a couple very simple answers for that. Number one, it's very convenient. To get this to fit in a Leshiy 2, I've done nothing except remove the original transfer port and screw a new one on. So the very worst outcome of this experiment was I'd waste a little bit of brass. The second reason is that these are good barrels. I know there's been a lot of controversy with the STX liners in the past, and me myself, I haven't been the greatest advocate of the STX liner, but in my tests it fares no worse than any other barrel out there. Barrels like the Art barrel that's in my Daystate Red Wolf is slightly better, and the BSA barrel that I have in the M3 is a bit stiffer, but on the whole the STX liner isn't a bad barrel. And finally, the main reason why I wanted to try and get this barrel to work in the Leshiy 2 is for pellet choice. This Leshiy 2 has a very small selection of pellets that I'm able to use. It mainly likes the harder ones such as H&Ns, and its favourites are Bisley Magnums. Now, I don't personally like H&N pellets, and I'd much rather this thing shoot JSBs. By swapping the barrel, I was hoping to get the Leshiy 2 liking some softer JSB pellets. And round 2 with the STX liner, I think I've succeeded. It seems to be grouping quite well now, and it's certainly no worse than the original barrel that's in the Leshiy 2. So I'll show you a little bit of shooting footage. Okay then, so here we are down at Peace. We're set up in the 50-yard range, and I've got some shoot and see targets on the back wall. Now the bottom row of targets we're using the STX liner and JSB heavies, and as you can see there the groups are pretty good. And the middle row that we're doing now is with the standard barrel and Bisley Magnums. Now as these groups go on, you'll notice a common occurrence. The pellets will be grouping quite nicely, and then you'll get one or two flyers that go outside of the group. Now at first when something like this happens, you assume it's something to do with a rifle. So what I've done in the past is put the rifle over the chronograph as I've shot it, looking out for any major discrepancies and anything that could cause a pellet to go wayward like they are there. Now 80% of the time there's no problem with the velocity coming from the rifle. The pellets just seem to go wayward on their own, and I guess it's due to deformation in the skirts or imperfections in the mouldings. Some H&N pellets have quite distinct mould lines around them, and sometimes the skirts vary in thickness. But I'm just doing 5-shot groups here. If I do get a flyer, I normally just do an extra shot in the group to prove to myself it wasn't anything to do with the gun, it was more to do with the pellets that I'm using. So the targets that we're shooting at are 2 inches in diameter, or 50mm, and there's a central ring just outside the red one of 1 inch. They are splatter targets, so the groups always do look a little worse than they actually are, but the groups on the whole I was pretty happy with. I don't see the Leshiy 2 as a bench rest gun, and I'm not expecting it to be as accurate as my Red Wolf or the Crown. I do want it to be as accurate as it can be, but once I'm happy and I've got it as accurate as I need it to be, then I'll probably just be throwing a red dot on here with a magnifier and just be using it as a fun gun. The Leshiy 2 is easily my favourite gun at the moment, and it's the one that's always in the van when we go shooting. Right then, so that was the results. You're probably wondering what I changed between last week's video and this week's video, and all I changed was that hole there. I made it a little smaller so that it was tighter on the pellet, and what I think that's doing is not allowing to expand as it gets pushed through into the liner. That hole there is just a hair bigger than the major diameter of the liner. Last week I had a 5mm hole, and whilst it did work, as you saw the results weren't fantastic, but this week, smaller hole in the end there, it worked a treat. So I'll probably make a few in the week and just stick them on eBay. I wouldn't say they're a miracle cure by any means, I think they're more of a trial thing. If you've got an FX barrel lying around and you want to give it a try, I think it's worth it, but I wouldn't expect miracle results. In my case it worked, however I can't test all the barrels, so I don't know if it will work in your circumstance. So will I be keeping the STX liner on my Leshiy 2? And the answer to that is maybe. I do want to put a poly barrel in the Leshiy 2, just to try and get it to like some more pellets, but the FX liner is definitely a step in the right direction and a nice little experiment. I can't say it'll be a permanent solution for me, as this barrel does belong on another rifle, but it's a nice option to have. Right then guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.